guys, it's Carrie from Rockin' G Farm. Well, tonight I am finally going to start some sourdough starter. I have started sourdough starter about a year ago, and I just got so frustrated because I would forget to feed it. I would leave it in the refrigerator, and then I just thought that I messed it all up and threw it away. But I now found that you usually can't screw up a sourdough starter, so I'm gonna try again. But the way I'm starting this time, I went ahead and went to Bell Urban Farm, the market down in Conway, and I got the Otis sourdough starter. And the reason I got this is because starting sourdough will take anywhere from 7 to 10 days for you to get your sourdough starter going. And this packet, because of what they have done, cuts this process down to 3 days. And so I'm like, hey, yeah, I don't have to do it for 7 to 10 days and like morning and night. So I'm gonna go ahead and use the sourdough, the Otis sourdough starter. And you need for that to get started is some bread flour, a jar with a lid that doesn't seal, that just sits down on your jar. You will need a spoon or a spatula and a kitchen scale, distilled water or unchlorinated water. Well, what I've done, I have chlorinated water, so I have left my water in my pitcher here overnight so that the chlorination will go away. I also have a pen, a pad and a pen, so I can write my numbers down for how much my jar weighs, because you're going to need to know that further on when you continue to add your, when you take away in the morning and then you have to feed it. So you're going to need to know how much your jar that you have your sourdough starter in, how much it weighs. So when the Otis sourdough starter has a little QR code on it, and I just scanned it with my phone, and then I airdropped it to my laptop so that I could have the instructions here, because I am filming with my phone, so I wouldn't be able to look at the instructions if it was on my phone. So I've got this instructions on my computer, and so we're going to go ahead and bring Otis back to life. That's how the instructions say. So they say that this is going to be a two-step process. So you're going to have a wet feed and a dry feed. The wet feed is going to be when you use more water than flour, and the dry feed is when you're going to use more flour than water. You also need to make sure that when you put your Otis, after you get them started, you want to make sure that you keep them in a kitchen that is at least 70 degrees, which my kitchen, we don't keep our house that hot in the wintertime. So I'm going to put it on top of my refrigerator so it's a little bit warmer there, and see how he does. If not, then I will probably keep him in my microwave or my oven, if I can remind my husband to always check the oven before he turns it on. But that's what we're going to do today. So let me get started. I'm going to measure or weigh my glass jar, and you do need to use a glass jar or a glass bowl of some sort. So let me go ahead and 0 grams. There we go. Okay, so my jar is 1,309 grams. So I need to always remember that. That's a number that you need to write down, is how much your jar weighs. And then the next thing they want us to do, we are going to mix our 10 grams of Otis starter into 60 grams of water and allow the mixture to set for 8 to 12 hours. So let me go ahead and I'm going to measure out. Let me tarot that out. I'm going to measure out 60 grams of water, and I'm going to do the water first because I know that Otis is 10 grams. I don't want to have to do that. So I've zeroed out my scale while I had my jar on that. So let's weigh out 60 grams of water. Ooh, oh, 62. Well, I think that's close. Okay, now I'm going to put the 10 grams of Otis starter into my glass jar. And I know my jar is big, but I needed a jar that had a big opening. And this is the only one that I had. So there goes Otis into the water. And now I'm just going to mix him really well. Let's move that flour out there. Well, looks like it's mixing up pretty good. I can smell it. I can smell the sourdough smell already. So I'm just going to kind of continue to try to get all of this Otis to kind of, oh, getting bubbly a little bit. I'm going to try to mix it up really well to see if I can get it all to dissolve or mix really well with that water. Okay, and so that is all for night one. How simple is that? So I am going to put my lid on, and it just sits on. And now I'm going to put it on top of the refrigerator, and we'll come back in 8 to 12 hours, which will be tomorrow morning. And we will, let's see, mix the bread flour, some bread flour in tomorrow morning, and then let that set for 8 to 12 hours. So let me put this up here. See you tomorrow morning, and we'll start step 2 on Otis, the sourdough starter. Okay guys, my grandson's here, so we're gonna hear a little bit of happiness in the background, but right now we're gonna do our second feed on my sourdough. Oops, hold on. We're gonna do the second feed on Otis, my sourdough starter. So this has been in my oven with the light on because we keep our house really cool, and so I needed it to be a little warmer, so I left the oven light on all night, and it's actually real warm. Even the glass jar is a little warm. So what we're going to do, we're going to add 40 grams of bread flour to this starter mixture. I've got my scale on 0, so I'm going to put my jar on, and it's going to be 1379. Right. Well, here, let me write on my hand again. 1379 plus 40. 9, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 4, 14, 19. Woohoo! We finally got it.
Yeah, that's it.
We're crazy here. Okay, so I'm going to go up to 14, 19, and I've got my bread flour. I'm just going to go real slow. Add that in. Okay, there we go. So we have got that in, and now we are going to mix this and allow this mixture to sit for another 8 to 12 hours. So we'll just mix that in, and it does smell very good. It already smells just like a sourdough starter, like if it has been like almost to the end of the sourdough point of making it. Hi, baby. Y'all just run with me on this one. This is live, and this is a part. He can stay there. I have my eggs on the floor, and my grandson is looking at him. I just brought him in the basket. I've went out to get the chicken eggs and left them in the basket on the floor, and he's thinking that's just some hot stuff. So anyway, all I'm doing right now is I am making sure that I get that flour mixed in with the Otis flour sourdough starter really well. And you can see how easy it is to stir in this container since it has a large opening. That's why I'm using it. It was the one with the largest opening. I know when I did my old starters, I used jars, like mason jars. You want to come up here? Can we say hi? Say hi. 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 Say, I'm with Honey tonight. Can you say I'm with Honey tonight? So we're just going to continue to make sure that all of that flour is incorporated with the sourdough starter mixture. Got some in the corners here, and then we'll just put that back in the oven. Ooh, that smells so good. We're going to put that back in the oven for tonight for another 8 to 12 hours. Can you hold it for me? Thank you. I'll let you put it on just a second. Okay. I think that has got it.
No.
It doesn't have it? You're gonna put it, oh, okay, can you put it on? Put the lid on, right here. Put the lid on that. You're gonna put the lid on for me? No, that's not cookie dough. Okay, so say bye. Tell them right here, bye. Look right here. Say bye. Right there. No, we leave that back on. Say bye. We'll be back in 8 to 12 hours, and we'll do day number 2 with the dry feed. So we'll see you then. Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Hi guys, this is Carrie with Rockin' G Farm, and evidently this is day 2 for the dry feed of Otis the sourdough starter. So I overslept a little bit, missed a couple of hours, and my jar is nice and warm. I can see some bubbles in there. Oh, and it does smell good, but you can't see the bubbles, but there are some bubbles forming, so I'm excited about that. But on day 2, we are going to dry feed Otis the sourdough starter, and hopefully we'll have a new starter for sourdough on the farm here at Rockin' G Farm. I'm so excited about that. So today what we're gonna do, we're not gonna discard anything today. We are going to do what they call a dry feed. We are going to add 40 grams. I'm gonna write that down. Remember last night we all had some issues about our mathematics in our head. We're gonna do 40 grams of water, and we're gonna add 60 grams of flour to our mixture, and we're gonna mix it together, and we're gonna put them back in my oven for 8 to 12 hours. Now remember, the only reason that I keep my sourdough starter in my oven is because we keep our house about 68 degrees and it's very chilly. So your sourdough needs to stay about 70 degrees, and especially while I'm trying to get him to start and be the foundation of my sourdough, I don't want him to be cold because he won't grow. So that's what you need. So I'm going to keep him in the oven until our cold snap is gone. It's a little cooler in the house when it gets like below 30 outside. So, because we don't put our heat up. We put another sweatshirt on. Hey, we're in the South. Okay, so that's what we're gonna do today, and I do have a spatula, and of course, it is from Peppered Chef. I have my digital scale so I can weigh my starter and my jar on. I have some bread flour, and I have some water that is has been sitting out on my bar, and I just cover it so the chlorine will kind of evaporate after you leave it out for 24 hours. But if you don't want to do that and leave water sitting out on your bar with the cover on it, you can go ahead and use distilled water for that. But it needs to be a little warm. It doesn't need to be cold water. Okay, so let's go ahead and do day 2 to get this sourdough back in the oven and me back to bed. So we're going to add the 40 grams of water. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna turn my scale on, and I'm gonna turn it back off because I should have had it sitting on first. Now I'm gonna zero it out again. So now this whole thing is zeroed out to 0. So I'll know when I put 40 grams of water in. So I'm gonna do it very, very slowly. And actually, I'm gonna take me a drink of water. My throat's not woke up yet. Tell you, I slept hard last night. It was nice to have my daughter and my grandson here. Okay, so we're looking for my on my scale to go up to 60 grams. So very slowly. So I don't want to put too much in it. Oh, there we go. I went to 61, but if you go over to 61, I think that'll be just fine. So we've got, and see, I did that again. I was supposed to put 40 grams of water in it, but I put 60. Oops. So I'm gonna kind of do that different in my head. So if I put 60 grams of water in, I'm supposed to put 40, that's 20 more. So instead of putting 60 grams of flour, I'm gonna put 80 grams of flour. See what I'm doing? I'm just adding exactly the right amount. Like it's 20 grams difference, so I'm adding the 20 grams difference. Hopefully it'll work. If not, we'll try again. So just trying to make it easier using the starter. And guys, it's okay to fail. It's okay to mess stuff up. It's no big deal. Just go on with it and try again. That's the way we learn. That's the mother of all invention. So we're gonna try again. So now I'm going to zero out my scale. I'm at 0. And I was supposed to put 60 grams of bread flour in. Now we're gonna put 80 grams in because I've actually put 20 grams too much water. Okay, guys. Failing is where success comes from. Okay, we're at 15. 31. 36. 51. 54. That's a bit too much. 56. 58. 59. There we go. Couldn't done that better if I tried. Okay, so now I'm gonna do We are going to mix that up really good, and we are going to let the fermentation process go for 8 to 12 hours. And I work tonight, so I might have to do this tomorrow, the next step tomorrow after I get out of church, so we'll see. But all I'm doing right now is making sure that I mix that flour and water in really well with that Otis sourdough starter mixture that I had in the bottom of my jar. I'm trying to make sure that I get, let me move this out of the way so you can see. I'm trying to get all the way down into these corners right here into the jar. Now I could say failure is the mother of all inventions, but failure can be a source of frustration until you calm down. My husband's grandmother cooked from scratch, and his fondest memory of her was her being in the kitchen trying to make homemade pie crust, and she kept messing them up. Now, if you manipulate your pie crust too much, they get doughy and they aren't light and fluffy, and then it's just like you can just make dumplings out of them because they're not going to be a fluffy pie crust. So he can remember her getting so frustrated that she just picked up that pie mix or the pie crust mixture that she was trying to make, and she'd throw it out the back door, and she'd come in and she'd try it again. Same thing. And he said she did that about 3 or 4 times before she got frustrated and stopped, and then came back and then did it right. So sometimes, you know, you just have to know that things fail. It's no big deal. She ended up being a great cook and being able to make some great pie crust. So there we go. Failure is the greatest help to success. Okay, guys, I'm just looking to make sure I've got everything mixed in really well. It looks great. I don't see any dry flour in the bottom of my jar. And like I said, I am so excited I got this wide mouth jar, because I had small skinny jars and I was trying to do this the last time I had started sourdough, and it just was not pleasant. It was very frustrating because I couldn't get down in there and mix everything up. But I've got it in there now, and guys, it looks like everything is started. So I'm just gonna go ahead, put my lid back on, and remember, you do need a lid that just sits on. You do not need a lid that seals it, because what we're trying to do in making the sourdough, we're trying to get the yeast bacteria that's in the air to come in and ferment this so that you can have a leavening agent for your bread. So as you can see there, we are ready to go back into the stove, only because my house is on the chilly side and we keep it that way. But our sourdough starter needs to stay a little warm. If you don't want to put it in the stove, you can put it on the top of your refrigerator. It just kind of slide to the back so the ventilation or the hot air from the running of the refrigerator will get your sourdough starter warm and keep it warm and stay in a warm place. If you have a fireplace and you don't have small kids, you can kind of set it on the hearth over there so you can just kind of keep it warm. So those are just some options of where to put your sourdough starter while, you know, you're needing it to stay warm. I'm going to put it in the oven this time, and I think I'm going to just kind of move it away from the light since it was warm. Other than that, y'all have a great day. Thanks for joining me on my crazy video where y'all see true life happen, failures and family. That's all what life is about. See, my lips can't start, but failures and family is all that life is about. Thanks for joining me, and I'll see you in 8 to 12 hours, or tomorrow morning after I'm out of church, and we'll do our last day of our Otis the sourdough bread starter. Well, hi guys, it's Carrie here with Rockin' G Farm, and it is day 3 for starting the Otis sourdough starter. Well, I'm several hours late because I didn't get to finish or go to step 3 until today. I went to work last night. I was supposed to do it last night and I got up late and I didn't get it done. So I'm doing it today. So I got home from work and now we're going to do it. So for day 3, ooh, that's nice and warm. For day 3, we are going to feed Otis. And what we're gonna do, we are going to take 100 grams from the starter here, or we're gonna do it easier. We're just gonna divide it right in half. It says discard 100 grams of starter or divide the entire 210 grams into 2 equal portions. You can feed both and make a second starter, and that's what I'm gonna do. So I did find another jar, even though it doesn't have a wide mouth on it, but this is gonna be my backup in case something happens with my original. So I'm gonna take half of the Otis and put it in here. So we're gonna do this. And guys, I opened the oven, and as y'all know, I keep Otis, or my sourdough starter, in my oven because our house, we like to keep it cool, and the oven keeps it warm. You need it to be at least 70 degrees or above for your sourdough starter to kind of start fermenting. And there are tons of bubbles in here. I'm so excited, and it smells so good. Can't wait to use it this week. I might make some bread. So I'm just gonna go ahead and take half. I'm gonna actually mix it all up. And then I'm just gonna take half of this mixture. And so I'm just gonna put my waste in this jar here, and it's gonna be a little runny. And then we'll be able to start sourdough this week. I'm so excited. Kind of making a mess here. Okay, let me put this on here and see how much we got. And I think we did perfect on that. Can't do much better. Okay, so now I'm gonna keep this as my starter and this one as my backup. But what I've got to do is feed them both now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to put this one back on here on my scale. I'm going to zero it out. I am going to add 50 grams of water and 50 grams of flour. And remember, you need to use distilled water or unchlorinated water. And if you need to unchlorinate your water, you just make sure it's been sitting out for at least 24 hours with something on it. You can use it in the refrigerator, but then you would have to warm it up a little bit because you can't put cold water into your sourdough mixture because it won't grow. It has to be warm. And I'm thinking that's about 80 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're going up to 50. There we go. Awesome. And then I'm going to add 50 grams of bread flour to this. Let me zero that out. Okay. There we go. And then we'll go ahead and mix this up real good. And they tell you, all the reading and the education I've been doing on sourdough mixtures, the more you kind of stir, the more it catches the yeast bacteria that's floating around in the air to bring it back into your sourdough starter. But we have Otis, the sourdough starter, that already has all of that yeast in it. Now I'm just mixing all that up. Maybe tomorrow I'll make biscuits or something. We'll see. Or maybe Tuesday. We'll see. Now I'm just making sure I get all of the flour incorporated very well. And then trying to push some of it down off of the edges of the jar. Okay. So that is going there. I'm gonna clean the lid off just a little bit, so I'm gonna sit it right here. And now I'm gonna do the same thing to my messy jar. Put that down. So now we're gonna add 50 grams of water and 50 grams of bread flour to this one. And this is just gonna be feeding this one to let it grow a little bit. Okay. Now we're going to add 50 grams of bread flour. So I've zeroed that. So we've got my spare sourdough starter that I'm feeding right now. So if anything ever happens to my original, I will always have a spare. That's a good thing to have because you never know what's going to happen. You don't know if something's going to happen and you knock it off the cabinet or something, and then you're going to have to go through this whole process all over again to get a new sourdough starter. So you always want to make sure you have a spare. You can keep it in the refrigerator, I think, for like I think somebody said, I heard somebody say at least 3 months without feeding it, but you might want to read that and do some research on that, because I've not heard too many people say that. I've heard probably about 3 people say that, so we will see. Ooh, that's nice and warm. So this is going to go in the refrigerator. And one thing that you need to know when you do put your sourdough starter in the refrigerator, or you leave it out on the counter when you are making it, sometimes it gets this grayish, whitish film on top of it. It looks like a little liquid. That is okay. That is called hooch. And that is just a fermentation process of the sourdough, and just mix that on in. As long as your sourdough will always be ready as long as it doesn't have any mold growing on it. And that watery, whitish gray that will come across the top when you're sitting it out and not using it for a while, that is hooch, and it's okay. Just mix it on in there and continue on using your sourdough starter. So what we're gonna do, we are done, guys, making our sourdough starter. This is so much easier than what it was before. When I used to make my sourdough back into my computer. So there we go. So this is my spare sourdough. I'm going to put it in the refrigerator for backup purposes, just in case something happens. And so that is what we do with it. And I'm not going to, even when it's in the refrigerator, I'm not going to seal the lid. I'm just sitting it on there so air can still get in there. And here is my starter. I'm so excited, guys. So much easier. So we can use it within 6 to 8 hours. This is going to rise, and it should like quadruple its height in here. And when it gets to the point of being quadrupled, getting that taller and more bubbles in it, that's when you want to use it. You want to use it when it's at the top peak of its rise, and then that's going to make your breads lighter and fluffier. So anyway, we are ready for sourdough bread. Guys, that's as simple as it is. 3 days. And normally if you start a sourdough starter and you do the flour all on your own and start from scratch on making a sourdough starter, it's 7 to 10 days to get to this point. And it was 3 days. Not really even 3 days, but about close to the end of 3 days. But wow, if I ever mess up and lose both of them, I'm definitely going back and getting the Otis, the sourdough starter. So guys, I give this a thumbs up. If you want to use sourdough or get a starter going, go purchase Otis, the sourdough starter. So guys, thanks for joining me as I am doing a new project this week with my sourdough. I'm so excited and I'm so glad that I went and got it. I will drop a link on the bottom so it'll give you just where to order it from. And guys, have a wonderful day. Thanks for joining me, and make what you have beautiful.